Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here. Let's jump into which 5-star standard is the best for you. Perhaps you're planning to pick up one of them, you're re-rolling your account, whatever it is. Let me give you in a tier list fashion. I have different categories here that you can see. Let's just narrate it very simply, and don't worry, this is meant to be a podcast version, so if you don't have your hands or eyes free to look at the screen, you can just put it in the background. I promise it's going to be very easy to follow through as well. So I have 5 ratings that I'll have. One is an overall rating, it's a summary of the character, if any of you who just want one rating. And then I have 4 different ratings as well as sub-ratings depending on what is applicable to your needs. First, of course, we have versatility, basically how well this character can be used in many different sense. Value at launch is very important as well that we want to talk about because I want to know exactly, it might be a very, very strong character 2 years from now, but there's no point because we are now playing at launch. We want to know what is the exact value. So I'll rate the character with some commentary on value at launch as well. Not only that, I'll be talking about beginner friendliness, especially for some of you who didn't play like Wuthering Waves, other real-time combat games, for example like Punching Grey Raven, Honkai Impact 3 and stuff like that. All of those games which are more real-time combat-ish, maybe you're a strategy player like myself, or you have slow hands. I do have slow hands. So beginner friendly is going to be one of the ratings that I'll be talking about for every single character too. And last but not least, I want to talk about the late game aspect of the character, whether they can perform well in Hollow Zero and whether they actually scale well. Because ultimately, it's a 5-star character. You don't want characters that can be easily replaced. We have tons of guides on the channel as well. You can take a look. On screen, you will see like certain different sections like what is attack, what's anomaly, stun, defense, support. In a nutshell, they are just different classifications of characters. One attack is focused on doing more damage. Anomaly is focused on doing like more elemental damage. Based on the effects, we have guides on the channel, you can check it out. Stun is just talking about stagger. Defense is how chunky you can put shields, maybe have some damage resistance as well. Supports are focused on crowd control or a bit of buffing the entire team. Some characters might have both also depending on what you're looking for. So very quick summary nutshell across the board. What is our experience? We have played Zenless Zone 0, 1, CBT 1, CBT 2, CBT 3. All 3 of them we participated in very extensively. We have cleared the hardest content as well. It's on the channel. It's in the live section of this channel as well. So you can check it out. I'm not just going to blabber something that I don't even know what I'm talking about. So I'm very careful about that. But let's start off first with Lycaon. He's the wolf doggo-like thing. If any of you who are looking for a very cool character, he's the only male character out of the 5-star standards. I like him a lot. I think he's a very, very interesting character. But let's talk about his kit and let's talk about how good he is in terms of the stats. So let's talk about the first rating, versatility of Lycaon. I think that he's definitely a A+ tier, and the highest rating is an S tier for this category, for all categories in fact. Versatility is A+. Why is it? Because he not only is very good with a duo with Ellen, who is the banner character, the shark girl that some of you might be pulling for when you first start the game. Likely it's going to be her when the game is initially launched. So Ellen is ice attack character, pairs very nicely with Lycaon, who's ice and stun. The reason for that is ice stun characters will stagger the enemy so that the enemy goes down into their vulnerable state. Then you can do your combo strings with your attack characters as the enemies do take more damage and they don't like attack back, so you don't have to care about interrupting your combo strings and stuff like that. So that is something to note. I really like this combo, Ellen as well as Lycaon, but in future if you plan to pull like other attack ice characters, maybe Miyabi, who knows, whenever Hoyoverse decides to announce her return, Miyabi will also likely be ice, maybe attack, who knows. It will be likely quite strong with Lycaon. I played this Lycaon and Miyabi way back in, was it even 2022? I can't really remember right now, it's a long time ago now. But yeah, that is first for versatility. He's also very strong if you don't want to play him with Ellen ice-focused teams. He's also very decent as a stun proc mule. There are only 2 other stun characters in the game, which is Koleda, also a 5-star fire stun unit, and Unbi Demara, who is the free electric stun unit that all of us get when we first start off the game. But Lycaon, in my opinion, is probably one of the better ones out of the 3 of them at launch. I'll talk a bit in the next section here, which is value at launch, the next category that we're going to rank him on. I think value at launch, he's definitely an S tier. He's the smoothest stun character to play out of all 3 of them. He is very fast. He has not too much animation delay. By animation delay, I mean like after he throws a punch, how long does it take for him to throw the second punch or immediately follow up with a dodge? Some characters have very long back swings. For example, like Ben, Koleda to some extent, they take very long to dish out a punch because maybe their weapons are heavier and stuff like that. But yeah, Lycaon doesn't have too much delay, which matters a lot for stun characters because you are generally playing stun characters when the enemy is most active, whereas your attack characters likely will come in after they have been dazed or stunned, which is generally more inactive the enemy will be. So I think fast characters is very important. I would say it's S tier. Out of the three of them, I do like him the best. Out of the stun, he can be played like even without a specialized team. For example, like the mid teams or ice teams, I still find him quite good just to hit that stagger up a little bit for your other two characters if you really wanted to. That being said, the other characters are not useless as well. Koleda also has a purpose. We'll talk about it in a bit. But next up, beginner friendliness of Lycaon, I think he's A+. S is of course the highest rating. Why do I say that? It's because there's one character that's even more beginner friendly for a melee character. But for a melee character, Lycaon hits very fast, very simple to execute, doesn't have too many wombo, combo and hard things for you guys to know. You just like press some buttons and you'll probably get him sooner or later. Very, very beginner friendly, quite intuitive a character to play. So I would recommend him as an A+ tier. Not the easiest, but one of the best, one of the easiest characters to play for any of you who are looking to start Zenless Zone Zero. And next up, late game as our last minor section before we talk about our overall rating and like summarize the thing. So A+ tier for late game. He's a very solid daze unit, especially when you play in Ellen teams. In the later stages, when you go on to the Halo Zero, if you are curious what it looks like, you can check our live section of our channel. We have like the endgame modes over there. In the endgame modes, there is DPS checks that you want to hit, and some elements are weak to certain monster typing where you do less damage against them. But then again, you will also want to tend towards mono elemental team because that is how you tackle content as quickly as you can. And Lycaon, Ellen teams, very solid, especially if this is the opener, people are pulling Ellen. I would say that Lycaon's a pretty good, safe bet going into the late game. At least in the first couple of maybe one patch, two patches. Beyond that, we have to see how the meta changes and what's the next banners other than Zuyuan as well as Ellen in maybe 1.2 and stuff like that. Overall rating, what is my take on Lycaon? I think he's an A+. He's a very beginner friendly, very solid stun unit which helps you chalk up days very, very quickly. Recommended for Ellen teams as well. If you are an Ellen lover at pulling Ellen, you definitely are looking for a good ice pair. I think Lycaon is the one. Probably highest recommendation if you are planning to play Ellen for the long run, just because of the way Lycaon is synergizing so well with her too. I think she's a pretty solid pick. You won't really regret this choice overall. I call it A+. Not the best, but one of the higher fews. The highest tier is S, and I'm not giving S's out for free. That sounds weird, but it is what it is. Let's go on to the next section, and that is Grace. A quick disclaimer, or quick summary. This is my favorite character in Zenless Zone Zero. I think she's a very, very strong character as well, and as I explain, will kind of see why. So she's Electric Anomaly, the only anomaly character at launch. Anomaly just basically means that you trigger statuses much quicker. For example, for Electric, which is her element, Grace's element, you get Shock, which for machine enemies, you might immobilize them for a while. You have some Electric TOT. Anomaly characters just do a little bit more damage for those additional elements, which matter in the later part of the game or even early game if you can proc it early and you understand how to build characters overall, which helps add to your DPS. So versatility for Grace is an A+ tier. I would actually want to put her S tier, but for the sake of generally she's not played outside of Electric teams or Bellabog industry teams too much because she does want to proc Shock very often. In the later part of the game, we will mention she does want to play in Electric teams, but she fits so well into Electric teams that she competes very strongly with another Electric character, 5-star also, that we will talk about in a bit. Generally, I play her as position number 2 in my roster. I play her in almost any single team comp. She's very, very versatile. Super quick swap, which means you put her on field, she does very little damage. Very little field time, a lot of damage. Not the other way around, sorry about that. The slip of my tongue. But yeah, A+, very, very strong character for versatility wise, but not S because she generally likes to be played in Electric teams, not as flexible as some other characters. For example, a 4-star character like Nicole, maybe I'll consider maybe a little bit more flexible because she can be played into most teams as she offers CC, whereas Grace doesn't really offer too much crowd control, so that's why she doesn't get the A+ tier as well. And if you're wondering about the 4 stars, we have a tier list already, and if you like this format but you wanted to know all the other characters, check that video out specifically for 4 stars. This video I I just want to cover the standard 5 stars. If not, it'll be like a 10-hour video or something like that. I don't know, man. But next up, let's talk about the next category, which is value at launch for Grace. Value at launch for Grace, I think is an S tier. She's the only anomaly character at launch. She gives tons of value for electric teams, and you have very good free-to-play options for electric teams. I played Anton as a main DPS, who is an attack DPS. Play with a character like Grace, and in my stun slot, I put Unbi Damara. You already have a full electric team ready to go. I really like this team a lot, very free to play friendly because 2 of them are 4 stars as well. Does quite good damage. All 3 of them electric. They all proc each other's buffs or at least the faction bonuses that they get. I think it's tons of value and the only anomaly character. So if you want to explore that, Grace is the best way to do it too. Unfortunately, she is, although a simple character to play where you swap in, throw one bomb, and you throw her out and whatever, not proc the thing, and then you swap her off. You barely play with her more than 5 seconds on the field at a time. But why is she not S tier then? It's because she's quite tricky to build. Anomaly requires you to have a better understanding of the game mechanics and also understanding how to build the character correctly so you can maximize her value. That's why she's not S tier. But if you follow the guides that we will put out on the channel as well, this is really like, this A+ is probably supposed to be an S tier. Grace is very beginner friendly, very easy to use, very little fill time kind of unit. Late game potential, I think it's S tier. She's a super versatile character if you're playing electric. She plays into anomaly. If you need an anomaly support, you can play her. You want quick swap teams, you can play Grace. If you're looking for mono electric, you can play Grace as well. So tons of options available for this particular unit, and only will get better with more electric characters and as more reliance grows on anomaly as well. S tier for Grace, and this is my top pick for Zenless Zone Zero's official launch. If any of you can't stand this character, there's other recommendations as well. But S tier for sure. Quick swap style, great utility with very little fill time, does tons of damage. Especially since a lot of the DPSs that you notice in the game tend to want a bit more fill time. You want to allocate them to maybe to your attack or stun characters. She offers great utility, giving the limelight to a lot of these other units as well. I like it a lot. S tier and my highest rating as well, going to official launch. And let's just juxtapose this with another electric character. This is Rina. She's an electric support from the maid faction, so similar to the likes of Lycaon. You have Ellen as well as Corin. These are the maid faction teams, and she's an electric support for Rina. Overall, let's talk first about versatility. Rina is slightly different from Grace. Some of you might be wondering. Grace is more damage oriented, proccing anomaly. She's quick swap in nature. Rina likes a little bit more fill time, but she does directly buff your characters by, we'll talk about it in a bit as well, in this first section here, versatility. She's an S tier for versatility because she not only buffs electric damage and shock, but she also buffs penetration. Which means that she theoretically can fit into most teams, although she's best in electric teams. So I'll give it an S tier for versatility. Not many other characters currently buff specifically everything, so I think that she's quite good as well. This character is a bit trickier to rate because she is 2 folds and in beginner friendly state, which I'll talk about in a bit. Let's first talk about value at launch. S tier, there are very few solid options at launch for a good offensive support. Rina is one of them. The only downside of this character of Rina really is she doesn't have too much crowd control, and she does compete for the similar slot with Grace. And many of times I find Grace's damage a lot better, as well as you want to proc the additional damage compared to the very minor damage percentage buffing that Rina provides, which you will realize, especially at base copy. We're not talking about like multiple copies of this character and stuff. But beginner friendliness, she is 2 folds. On first glance, she seems to be very easy to do, and I recommend it for beginners as well if you're getting used to it. For all the benefits of Billy, good amounts of mobility, good amounts of damage, can proc a lot of assault if you use him long enough. Rina is more or less the same, just that Rina has a lot more mobility. Somehow she floats in the air, so maybe she moves faster. So great range and mobility, but the dual fold, the other flip side is actually this character has a very tricky kit to execute. You want to put both of her puppets, thingies, Drusilla and the other things name out on the field. When it's out on the field, that's when you get your maximum buff, which might not be very intuitive for a new person coming into the game. But still, I think you can get it within like a couple of hours or so. That's why I put it at A+ for beginner friendliness. Still not super simple, but if you just like bunga spam her when you are in tough situations. I found it very, very useful, especially if I'm not too sure what the boss mechanic is. Her mobility and great range does help a while with dodging, because if you move fast, it's a pseudo dodge because you can get out of the way, so you don't have to rely on like your dodge counters, especially if you tend to run out over time. Late game, this is a very tricky character to talk about. On first glance, I would definitely prefer Grace over a character like Rina, but one of the caveats to this character is she shines with additional copies of her, which makes her inherently a bit of a whale character. She performs very well. Depending on how Hoyoverse decides to change her official launch kit, we could see it go very favorably or really negatively. So I want to put this as a caveat here. It depends on what is the final copy. But for now, I do not see many places that I will rather see a Rina compared to Grace, because Rina does take up a bit more field time for much less damage. So you're relying on a lot of other characters to put in the additional damage. And if you don't have the additional shock being applied as well to do even more damage, I just find it a bit hard to justify playing Rina instead of Grace, who is much more flexible and does a lot more damage for lesser field time. So overall rating, still not too bad. I'll put it as an A+ Rina overall. On the same tier as Lycaon so far, maybe slightly below Lycaon in terms of my personal priority, but solid range, great utility, super beginner friendly because you have that massive amounts of range with the enemy, so you can dodge things much better, and also skills with good amounts of money for any of you who are planning to get multiple copies. As of CBT 3 information, of course, this is a pre-launch tier list, so we haven't seen the official kit, but by and large, they should more or less remain the same as they did since CBT 2, which didn't change too much. And next up, we have a flashy character. This character, for any of you excited characters, you love her design, you might want to listen up to this one. This is where the ratings might mislead you. I want you to also pay attention to my narration and why I gave certain ratings. That's more important for this particular unit. This is the only caveat of the entire all of them, not a simple character to understand. Soldier 11, fire attack unit. I think it's probably the only fire attack unit. All of them, each element when they start the game only has one attack unit of the element, except for physical. There's like 3 physical attack. God, I have no idea why. But versatility for this character is A. She is by far the poorest out of all of the standard characters because she's a lone ranger. No one is in her faction, so the only way you get her bonuses is if you play fire teams, which in a sense restricts her team composition. That's why versatility is ranked only at A, not A+ or S. And she also takes up significant amounts of field time. She wants to be played on field as much as you can, which means if you need a lot of field time, not many other characters she can play with. This restricts her team compositions by a large amount. But it's okay if she can put out the numbers, which we'll talk about in a bit. Which is, next up, let's talk about the value at launch. And I teased a little bit on the beginner friendliness. She's a very fun character to play, but in my opinion, what limits her at launch is the lack of fire support units to buff her up. If you look at the support category, you have Nicole, who is like in what's that word? Aether. Yeah, Aether element. You have Rina, who's electric element. You have a character, for example, like Koleda, which is, sorry, not Koleda, Sokaku, who is ice element, and to some extent you have Ben, who's like fire element. But Ben is more of a defensive support, so if you're looking for a very quick swappy oriented character that helps buff her up, you don't really have much options for Soldier 11 right now, especially since no one else is in her faction too. Very, very tricky character to play, which we'll talk about in the late game section. Beginner friendliness, this unit is one of the hardest characters to play at the highest level. Some of you might be wondering why is that the case. You see everyone playing it so easily on YouTube and stuff. If you do not counter and you do not dodge and like counter the enemies, you will be finding it very difficult to proc her fire application all the time because you have to hit. It's like playing a rhythm game while you are fighting action combat. You have to get the timing right to hit her fire strikes. So if you hit it too slow, you get physical. If you hit it just right, you get fire. But this character, although it's just B tier for beginner friendliness because it's very difficult to play and she's a melee character, means that you have to know boss mechanics, enemy mechanics on top of getting that rhythm game. So you're playing like multiple games in one. Really, really crazy. But late game, she is a monster. She is insane amount of fire application in the hands of a good player. In my opinion, this is probably one of the highest skill cap characters in the game. The rest of the characters are quite easy to play, in my personal opinion at least. Soldier 11 probably the hardest ones, and if you can master this character, you'll find it really, really fun. A lot of field time, so you practically can play like a hyper carry-ish kind of character. you will enjoy it a lot. It does remind me of like Diluc in the old days of Genshin Impact as well. My only gripe of why I don't put her S tier is she really needs more teams. She needs more characters coming in, be it same faction as her or more fire supports, then she will definitely be S tier in my opinion. So if you are beginner, don't recommend. If you are seasoned person or you like to challenge yourself, you have fast hands, try her out. Not going to be very easy. Maybe try the demo first or something. Overall rating of this character, I will put her as A tier. This is a caveat again. Very fun kid that has a very awkward release roster. She's really restricted because of the official launch. No one in her faction at all, so you don't get that faction bonuses to find. And what inhibits, and this really is what inhibits this high skill unit, which if you are very good, probably S tier for you. If you are not very good in real-time combat, there's a lot of easier characters that you can do more damage with for much less skill requirement. A tier for the general public, in my personal opinion at least. Next up, we have another physical attack character. This is totally opposite to the other character that we talked about in terms of friendliness. Nekomata, she's a physical attack character. You see her very early in the story as well. Won't spoil any of the story, but a very fun character to play. Versatility wise, she is A tier by ranking. She likes some field time on field to hit as much as she can, and in my opinion, she's best focused in assault teams. Anything else probably doesn't add too much value, and you might as well just play the respective element that you're looking for or the respective factions to proc like assault much quicker. So versatility, in my opinion, is like A, but you do have quite a lot of options at launch, and that's why I put her as A+ at launch. She has like Nicole, you have like in terms of faction, you have the Nicole faction, you have Onbi, you have Billy, which already like is very easy to play, very super free to play friendly because you get a lot of these characters for free also. She's physical also, so you have two other 4-star characters of the attack class, A ranks, which is like Corin and Billy. So you have very free to play unit in most sense. If you are planning to play the game like total free to play, and you do not know what limited character you want yet, maybe you don't plan to pull on Ellen, or you don't want to pull on Zhu Yuan, I think Nekomata will be a very interesting character for you. Just very flexible, unit physical, you can tackle physical content, you can swap them out for Unbi, Nicole, you still get a lot of buffs. So she has very wide elemental coverage. I would rank this as S actually. Maybe I'll just remove this. I'll probably rank this as S, especially if you're a free-to-play player, because you can play into so many different teams at launch. I like this character quite a bit. In terms of beginner friendliness, she's also probably going to be an S tier. She's an easy melee unit to play. Super low animation swing. She hits, hit, dodge. Not too much animation lag, allowing you to perform her combos very well to keep up your DPS as well, which is one of the characters in attack class that doesn't mind fighting enemies when they are still active. So in a team of Nekomata, you will find that it's actually quite easy to run without a stun unit, because unlike some of the other characters who really want the enemy to be stunned before coming in as an attack unit, Nekomata is very happy to fight enemies even though they are still up and about. So the rotation will look like Nekomata wants to fight, Billy is ranged, so it doesn't matter whether they are down, they are dazed or not. Corin, it has a bit of channeling, so you do want the enemy to be dazed when Nekomata or Billy manages to stun them. That's the bit of the combo of a pure physical team. So easiest melee unit to play really. If you're learning melee combat, she's probably the go-to. For any of you new players into the game, I recommend this unit as well. Last but not least, in the micro section, we have the late game aspect of this character. I will call her 8+. Back in CBT 2, there was a huge abuse with assault teams in general. They just did insane amounts of damage. Corin, Nekomata, and Billy, they did nerf it down a little bit. And what I want to see is, of course, hopefully a physical anomaly unit coming up. Then you could see like her starting to pop off. Nekomata pop off. She doesn't really rely too much on a stun unit because she dodges very well. She's able to like dodge counter very quickly as well. So she could even be played with very good units like a physical support, physical anomaly to buff up Nekomata as well for main DPS physical. Could see that happening. Overall rating, I think it's an A+. Again, I didn't want to put every character in S. She is, in my opinion, for a free-to-play player, higher than Lycaon. For any of you who are not pulling, probably I'll rate her higher. I almost want to put her in S tier, and I feel I should, just that her versatility does restrict me a little bit, because she, although can play into a lot of teams because of what's available at launch, but she generally is best focused in assault focused teams for physical teams, since she hits a lot and very quick. Needs more physical units to shine better too. Last but not least, Koleda, Fire Stun Unit. Now, this is not a boring character. Some of you might think that this is, out of all of them, the least important, but this is actually one of the most unique characters in the game, and it shows of what is to come in the game too. So do listen about this. Versatility wise, what makes her special is she has a very unique mechanic with Ben. She is, let me just open this at the same time. Out of all of the characters in the game, she is the only character that has a synergy with another character in the game where she actually gets active buffs. So Koleda, when played with a team of Ben, I think she gets better multipliers, a bit of ultimate animation difference also, which means that value at launch, S tier, great amount of combo because one is a stun, Koleda is a fire stun, Ben is a fire defense unit. So although they are both very, very slow in attacking, they do build up for your main DPS to be in a very, very good spot because you have tons of value of just the two of them synergizing very well with each other. So you're forcing, basically, versatility I put as A is because you're kind of forced to play both Ben with Koleda, which means your last slot has to be either a fire unit or a Bellabog attack unit in the final slot so you can do some damage, which you do have quite some options. For Bellabog attack unit, you have characters like Anton. If you're looking for a fire attack unit, you have Soldier 11. But other than that, we need more characters in the game in order to like fully maximize this combo. So that's really versatility A, value at launch S tier for that reasons. For beginner friendliness, in my opinion, she's probably the least, and I teased a little bit of the late game on the screen here. In my opinion, like beginner friendliness, she's probably like the slowest stun unit in the game, which is backed up because of her Ben combo with Ben, who's able to like take a lot of damage. He gives like shields and stuff like that when you swap in between both of them. So you really need to maximize the Koleda Ben combo and rotating between both of them to get a lot of value. So she does have noticeable animation timings, which is like your animation lag swings and stuff like that, which is very counterintuitive for stun units because you will want to fight the enemy when they are most active when they are playing into when you're playing your stun character. So it's a bit tricky, but still can get used to. I didn't really like it too much after playing for so long. This is a character that I don't really play very often. As you can see, I don't have much clips in this particular unit as well. But late game, I think she's very, very strong. You do need, and I rank it A+ here, definitely needs a fast fire DPS to shine. Could be, Koleda Ben could be meta in future, especially if we get a new limited fire character that is very, very fast. That might compete with, for example, Soldier 11, but that's my opinion as well. Overall rating for Koleda, I think she's A tier. Very restrictive comms, very slow, not very intuitive for a lot of people. But if you are looking for a fire team, specifically for Soldier 11, and you don't mind popping like the extra bucks and stuff, you can get, or you got lucky and pulled a very, very nice fire team. She offers good value if you have the right DPS. Right now, the right DPS, in my opinion, probably Soldier 11 or Copium is like Anton. But that's my opinions so far. And if you want more guides on the channel, I already have tons of it. Check it out and like and subscribe for more of such future information, future content. Let me know if you want to see one on the limited characters as well. Currently, we only have 2. I can give you my thoughts on both of them too in another video. But guys, thank you so much again for watching. See you in the next video.